everyone, I wanted to bring you a quick video in between my more sort of creative projects, just talking a little bit about Jane Tranter's recent comments to do with Doctor Who and the Disney renewal in the Royal Television Society television magazine, which I think is very interesting and basically sort of pseudo-confirms that there's a good possibility that we won't have a decision on the future of Doctor Who from Disney's end until at least 2026, which, yeah, is not ideal, but I think we've all kind of had a feeling that it would be the case at this point. So I'm just going to dive right into this piece of news, but if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, and also go check out the last video I made on the history of Doctor Who over at Longley. I really enjoyed making that video, and it's very different from what I usually make, and I'd love to see some support on that. So if you get the time, feel free to check that one out. I very much would appreciate it. But let's dive right in. Jane Tranter in the latest television magazine issue from the Royal Television Society. Only after The War Between Land and the Sea airs does Disney Plus have to make a decision about whether or not they want to do any more. So yeah, here's the full quote. Thank you to A Madman Not a Box for finding this, Jamie, over on Twitter. Tranter insists that Disney has always had the right to walk away after 26 episodes have aired. Then and only then does Disney Plus have to make a decision about whether or not they want to do more, she says. I imagine at a time when Disney are having huge cuts themselves and there have been slashes in program budgets, they're looking to take their time to balance everything out and decide what they want to do, as Tranter diplomatically. She says it's not a question of if the iconic sci-fi series will return on the BBC, but rather when and how. At its heart, it's a BBC show and it will keep going one way or another, she says. So yeah, pretty interesting quote here. Obviously the main thing that's interesting here is that she insists that Disney have the right to basically withhold their decision on Doctor Who's future until the full 26 episode order is complete. Obviously, as we know, the full order for Doctor Who was 2 series of the main show plus a spin-off. So until that ends, they're not legally obligated to say anything, to the BBC with regards to renewal or anything like that. And the fact that she's saying this indicates to me that it's probably pretty likely that we're not going to hear anything for a while. It's possible that Disney could say something before 2026, but the fact that she's basically saying that they don't have to until War Between Land and the Sea airs, and kind of laying the groundwork for the fact that it could be a long wait for a decision, indicates to me that there's a fairly high chance we won't be hearing anything until The War Between Land and the Sea airs. And I think the interesting thing about this quote is what she says about Disney having cuts themselves, which is very true. A lot of these streaming services have realised that the streaming model as it currently exists is just not sustainable nor profitable. You can't throw 200 million on a show and then expect it to make its money back via a subscription fee of like £10 a month or $10 a month. It just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, Doctor Who doesn't have a budget that big, but a lot of Disney Plus shows do, the Marvel and Star Wars shows and such. And I know that new Harry Potter show has a budget of over $1 billion for multiple series, which I highly doubt they're going to make back. Even with the merchandising arm of Harry Potter, which is still massive, I think that's an insane amount of money to spend on one show, and you don't have the benefit of ticket sales and things like that. So it seems like across the board, streaming has been deprioritized. We've seen Disney kind of shifting at least things like the MCU back towards films rather than, constant TV show releases like it was in the early 2020s. Star Wars now is finally getting a new movie off the ground with Ryan Gosling and Matt Smith, as well as Simon Bird of all people, which is pretty funny.
Feisty one you are!
So it seems like they're realising that the box office is where they make their money, and streaming is basically just a giant money pit. So it does make sense for them to reevaluate this and kind of say, well, do we need all these shows? And Doctor Who, being a show that they don't fully own, would probably be one of the ones that would be on the chopping block, because they might not see it as essential. Equally, however, it is probably way cheaper for them to produce than most of their other shows, so maybe that does factor in. As I've said before. Again, she does insist that Doctor Who will continue one way or another, which multiple people have said at this point, and I don't have any reason to really doubt that at this stage. If you look at how much stuff the BBC is still pumping out that is Doctor Who related, obviously without the main show itself, I think that they want it to keep going. And this actually echoes pretty strongly with Stephen Moffat's recent comments on the Disney deal and the future of Doctor Who as well. Former Doctor Who showrunner argues BBC has a national duty to keep making the show. Quote, "It's painful when it's off the air." When the future of Doctor Who is a little up in the air, former showrunner Stephen Moffat has argued that the BBC has a national duty to keep making the show. The writer helmed the beloved sci-fi series from 2010 to 2017, aka the Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi years, but has more recently returned to write the series' 14-episode Boom and the Christmas special Joy to the World. But after the latest episode, The Reality War, which saw Ncuti Gatwa regenerate to Billie Piper, everyone is still waiting for a decision from Disney about whether they're set to commission more seasons, although Kate Phillips, Chief Content Officer at the BBC, has assured fans the show will continue with or without Disney. Yeah, we've covered that comment before. Speaking exclusively to RadioTimes.com, before the statement was made, Moffat said, "I hope it comes back. I don't have any inside information, and I'm only vaguely in touch with Russell T Davies, and we're usually talking about how we're both working for Channel 4 at the moment, on upcoming series Tiptoe and Number 10. I don't know what the future is. I hope there is one. I have no idea. The spin-off's been shot, and I imagine decisions don't get taken until that's out. And that's not for a while, but it's always painful when it's off the air. I think there's a national duty for the BBC to make Doctor Who." And then basically, yeah, it just goes on to talk about the quote that we've already covered from the various BBC executives. So even, Moffat is under the impression that there likely won't be a decision until after the spin-off airs. And I do find it interesting that he says it's a national duty as well, which I agree with. I do think that Doctor Who is a big part of the UK cultural furniture. It is still one of, the most popular and, known IPs to come out of, Britain specifically. And I do think that there is a duty to keep it alive for that reason. Judging by this quote and the quote of Jane Tranter, it seems exceedingly likely to me that we're probably not going to be hearing anything until next year, which is sad, but it's basically given me confirmation that I'm probably not going to cover many updates until 2026 on this topic. I've begun making more of a content shift towards less news stuff. This is kind of a little in-between thing. It does make me think, though, that, they probably should have had it in the arrangement that they had to make a decision after Doctor Who specifically, rather than the spin-off, because if Russell wanted yearly Doctor Who, which obviously that quote lives somewhat infamously now, him saying that there's going to be yearly Doctor Who on and on and on, if they wanted that, the only way they were going to be realistically able to secure that is if they guaranteed that in 2025, straight after Season 2, Disney made a decision. So if the decision was a no, which I'm still leaning towards it being a no given how long they've dragged their feet over this, then they could immediately jump into Season 3 under a BBC budget or another partner. Well, maybe not immediately, but you know what I mean? Sooner than they would if they have to wait, however long for a Disney decision. Obviously, we're 3 months on from Reality War, so that represents 3 months waiting to see what a decision is, 3 months that could have been spent looking for other partners or beginning work on a BBC exclusive special or whatever, which they can't do until Disney makes a decision, obviously. And it looks like we're probably going to be waiting, at the very least, probably about 4 more months, at the very least. Probably longer than that, because I doubt that they're going to release War Between Land and Sea on New Year's, because New Year's is also the release of Stranger Things 5, and I highly doubt that they're going to want War Between the Land and the Sea to release at the same time as that, because all the social media traffic is going to be talking about Stranger Things. So, yeah, we're going to be waiting a while, but rest assured, I'm going to be keeping the Doctor Who content coming from all parts of Doctor Who history, different topics and all that sort of stuff. So make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.